Clemson just snatched up a four-star quarterback in Kharim Hughley in the early part of July. What does that mean for the Tigers in the future? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, and part-time host and producer over on the flagship station, 105.5 FM, The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're new to the show, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We do things here every Monday through Friday, every week, all things Clemson right here on Locked On. So if you want to be a part of it, make sure you follow and subscribe. And don't forget, in between episodes, you can follow me over on X at The Morgan T Show, where we talk all things Clemson over there as well and rile up some Gamecock fans along the way. Today's episode, we're going to shift focus from what I've been looking at with LSU and specifically talk about some recruiting and a big win that Clemson got in the recruiting trail for 2025, because we know there's got to be life after Cade Klubnik. 2025 is the last season for Cade with the Tigers. So what will happen with Clemson after that? And we'll look into it. Before we do, though, let me tell you that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, so Clemson did get a big-time commitment in the 2027 recruiting class. You know, they already have Max Brown, Sammy Brown's younger brother, so that was a good start to the recruiting class because, I mean, it is still extremely early for this class. We're talking, you know, this year is 2025, next year is 2026, and they're still trying to finish up that class. And then 2027 is kind of just getting the momentum started. And Kharim Hughley ended his commitment after just 5 days. Clemson offered him. Garrett Riley showed interest in him, really loved what he brought to the table, and, you know, really feels like he can bring a big ignition to the 2027 recruiting class and to the 2027 team and beyond. Clemson talked to him on July 4th and gave him an offer. And here we are, July 11th. It was actually a couple days ago that he committed. He went public. And, you know, I think it shows kind of that there was a relationship obviously built up. Garrett Riley needed to strike early. He wanted to get in another guy in his rotation. You know, we'll talk about it on this episode about who he has lined up for 2025, 26, 27, 28, and where Hugley could fit in to this area. The staff values getting a quarterback early. We've already kind of seen that with Clemson regularly over the past couple of seasons, even before Garrett Riley was around. Get a quarterback, and that you can build around that. That's one of the, you know, the biggest positions that you need for sure. I've always said it seemed like Dabo Swinney's strategy was quarterback and defensive line. You know, if they can hit on first round draft picks at both or either, then you're going to have a pretty good season and a pretty good team that you can build around. Makes everything much easier. And Dabo has done a really good job building at defensive line and building at quarterback. I mean, Clemson has done really well in the Dabo Swinney era of getting in big time quarterbacks. Now, is Hugley a number one overall quarterback? No, he's like 14th nationally, 27th best player in Georgia, top 200 guy if you're looking at the composite rankings for 24/7 Sports. But it is still extremely early because so where he's at right now doesn't mean where he'll end. And when you look at his film over on Huddle, you probably will think like I do and say this guy is going to get better and better. I mean, he's still, no disrespect, but he is still very much a kid. You know, he still has 2 more seasons of high school football to play and develop and grow. You know, this young man is still trying to figure out his own style, but because he has such great talent at such a young age, to me, that shows that could be a lot of upside if everything, works out, if he stays healthy, keeps a good head on his shoulders, and keeps hitting the books, but also hitting the weight room as well. Locking down a quarterback early is big. I don't think, I'm going to say he's going to be the next franchise or face of the franchise or anything like that. It's way too much pressure to put on anyone, but it's a good pickup for the next in line and for the next year as you continue to build around people. And he's definitely someone that you can build around as far as his style is concerned. He can help build 2027. So now he has to think about how can he recruit around him or help the coaching staff recruit around him to get back to a national championship with his recruiting class, with his group of guys. Cade did it. Christopher Vizzina did it, and you're continuing to see Clemson getting now a star on offense to go along with a star on defense. So you kind of solidify those two guys helping you lead the way and build this 2027 class. Now, Hugley's efficiency is pretty good. 2,543 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, and get this, just 2 interceptions. So, he's definitely somebody who doesn't put the ball out at risk, in dangerous territory. He's very calculated with where he's going to make his throws. But what I love about it is when you look at his film, he keeps his eyes downfield, even when he gets flushed out of the pocket, even when he gets, even when he gets frustrated, and the play doesn't necessarily go his way. He has a trait that, he can roll out, keep his feet moving, keep downfield, and still throw a 50-yard strike with relative ease. And so you can kind of see that's what Garrett Riley may be looking for as he continues as the offensive coordinator for Clemson for years to come. There's some debate over whether or not he eventually become a head coach, but for right now, he's looking for someone who's extremely mobile, who has a strong arm, but who is not just throwing it just to throw it downfield, making quick decisions, but not someone who doesn't have good vision to be able to make good decisions as they throw the ball down the field. He's got, he's got some good wide receivers in his high school team, and he'll have a lot of really good ones here at Clemson for sure. He'll be another guy who can get in, and when people see what he can do, when other players that are his age see what he can do, I think that he's one of those guys that will warrant other guys to come play around him for sure. Cause they're like, hey, I want to catch the football from that guy. So electric type dual threat quarterback that I think will really get fans on their feet and hopefully get some other recruits on their feet as well to kind of come over to Clemson. Now, skeptics might say he's kind of short, 5'11", to me, not too short. He's taller than me a little bit by like an inch, but size to me, I don't really beat anybody up over that. I don't really worry about that too much when you're talking about a sophomore rising into a junior season. So he still has a lot left to grow. And, we've seen guys under 6 foot still have success at the college football level. We're not looking for him to go win a Super Bowl, but we are looking for him to come in and be a dynamic player in the Power 4 or 5 conference or a Super League, whatever he ends up seeing when he gets to college. I don't think that, the height really is a big problem at all. I think that's just kind of nitpicking in my opinion. He has the talent, he helps get players open because of his footwork, and Garrett Riley is going to be able to get him some lanes and, neutralize any of these, possible frame concerns that some people may say. But Hugley is a pretty fast runner. I wouldn't say he's necessarily going to be the fastest guy on your team, but to me, it's kind of just one of those guys that's just extremely confident with his legs, not necessarily, probably a little bit faster than like, say, a Russell Wilson type feel that I get from him. But when I say Russell Wilson, I'm just saying that in the sense of he still keeps his eyes downfield and tries to make plays downfield. Russell Wilson, as a younger version, more like a Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to give that kind of comparison. I'm not saying that he's a comparable to these guys. I'm just saying when you talk about his ability to use his feet and roll out and still look downfield and make some good strikes downfield, you have to like that from Clemson and from their quarterback. So we'll talk about a little bit more of some of the praise that the analysts have been giving Hugley, and also finish up the show talking about the progression of quarterbacks and what we see, or what I see from Clemson for the next, 4 or 5 years down the road. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you can also build wealth. Now, I've told you that I eat out a lot. And this recently, when I was out of town, I'm going to go back to Lawrenceville next week. And now I'm at home this weekend, but I'm worried that I'm going to go out and start eating out again and go get all of those great Chinese restaurants that I love. And I'm going to blow my budget. But with Monarch Money, it kind of keeps you in check, and not necessarily to a negative, but keeps you focused on what your main goals are. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Now, multiple outlets have been talking about Kharim Hughley and saying that he has really good velocity for a sophomore quarterback. Again, we're talking about a rising sophomore here as well, but he has great velocity from his throws. He has the footwork and the speed with his legs. And Sports Illustrated, Prep Red Zone have him listed as someone who they see as a rising star in the high school ranks. If he continues to build on his mechanical improvements each season, and as he continues to go to these camps and improve his skills, he could be one of the better quarterbacks in the 2027 cycle. So while he may not be the highest ranked quarterback in the cycle right now, I do agree with those outlets in saying that he has a ton of potential. When you look at his film, he just seems to be that dynamic quarterback that's just completely different than what you've seen with Clemson. I wouldn't say a Deshaun Watson. I wouldn't say a Trevor Lawrence. I wouldn't say a Kelly Bryant. I wouldn't say a DJ Uiagalelei or a Cade Klubnik. He is his own person, similar to me to a Russell Wilson, similar to a little bit of Deshaun Watson, maybe, but without the height there. That's why I lean more on the Russell Wilson comparable for me. Now, even still, he's one of those guys. I saw a play where he rolled out, and it was just a simple rollout to the right, and he was able to chuck it about 50 yards downfield on the money to his wide receiver that was in stride. Now, the 24/7 sports guys have mentioned that when he came to Dabo Swinney's June camp, that everybody was drooling about how much zip he had on his throws and how he was able to just really stretch the defenses on those deep routes. The ball gets to the wide receiver right when they need it, but that zip is important because, you didn't always see that. You don't always see that with every quarterback. Remember the past quarterbacks of Clemson who could throw it deep, but didn't really have the zip, like a DJU. Could throw it deep, didn't really have the zip deep. Now, he would throw it 100 miles an hour short for whatever reason, but throwing it deep ended up being more of lobs. And sometimes you get that from Cade Klubnik, more of, I like to say Cade pulls out the lob wedge sometimes when he throws it deep. You don't really see that from Hugley because he has a little bit more of arm strength to kind of keep it on a rope, even 50 yards down the field. And what really just is crazy to me, even while he's moving and running around the pocket and moving out of the pocket. So you're not going to be somebody who can just fluster him by getting him out of the pocket. Honestly, he may even perform better because he does that. Now, Prep Red Zone also came out and said that he's an athletic quarterback who flicks the ball all over the field, and he is extremely creative in finding ways to get chunk gain plays. I would say that too. I don't know if you get him on the field, how many times are there going to be drawn up plays like that, or how many times they're going to be where they're just football plays. And honestly, as you continue to go and get deeper and get deeper in the season and get more against teams that are more talented across the field, I want to see a player go off script more and be able to make those football plays. I felt like that's when I think of a guy who went off script and just won the game. I call those guys gamers. I think of like a Connor Shaw. I think of like a Tim Tebow. Those type of guys, like a Lamar Jackson, even like a Deshaun Watson, who says, you know what? You covered everything. Somehow you got everything, but you know what? You didn't get this one thing. You didn't get me. And so making plays out of no plays, or finding options out of no options, or seemingly no options, also seems to be a strength for Hugley now in his young football career. Again, we're still talking about a rising sophomore here. So we know he has a live arm. We know he has a lot of zip on his throws. We know that he is pretty creative and can go off script, but you trust him because he has shown you with his film that you can. And then Sports Illustrated talked about how poised he was. Some of the scouts emphasized that he just seemed like a calm dude, someone who just doesn't get rattled a bunch, but also doesn't get rattled and get forced into making plays that he doesn't need to do. It's not his 2 interception season is not that he was overly conservative or that the play calling was overly conservative. It's really more that he was just very good at his reads, very good at his post-snap movement, and being able to find something out of nothing, going back to that creativity. So when you think about Kharim Hughley, you're thinking good arm, rip it, zip on the throws, off script, creative, make something out of nothing, and then poised to kind of not get himself not force his team into negative plays or into turnovers. And those, to me, are all traits that anybody would want. So I can see if he's already doing it now, he's just going to keep continuing to build on that, and we'll see more and hear more and more. You'll possibly hear a ton about him after this season in 2026, at the beginning of 2026, or possibly even later on in 2026, because that's when he'll be a senior. That's when he'll be getting ready to transition to Clemson. And that's when I think the national media will catch up to him. But you at Locked On Clemson as an everydayer, you're already going to know because we already talked about it. But some of the skeptics out there remain a little bit cautious because he's has a 60% completion rate in high school. It's kind of low, but some say that he still needs to work on his mechanics, and that's okay. I don't really have any problem with any of that because, to me, you want him to continue to develop. The accuracy ceiling, to me, looks very high. He could, if he's able to do that now, I can see him being much higher, above 60%, as he becomes a junior and goes into his senior year as well. I don't want a quarterback to be perfect. I do want them to take chances, but he's not taking bad chances. Like, even though they may be incomplete, that's much better than being a turnover. That's for sure. As we're seeing with Garrett Riley, his practice here is to try to get his marquee guy that he can get. And he seems like he's got that starting guy that he can build around. Defense as well has Max Brown for 2027. They have a guy that they can build around. So they have two guys that can be recruiting champions. So we'll have to see how good Hugley can do now as sort of another recruiter for Clemson, as he's already committed. So the tape, there's a lot of good to see from the tape. Go watch it for yourself over on huddle.com. The buzz from the scouting analyst is definitely out there. He brings more than just what you see on paper. Again, I try to tell fans, oh, he's the 3-star or this or that. He is that right now. And some places I think have him as a 4-star. But who cares about the star ratings, you know? They're not always perfect. They don't say everything. And really these analysts that put these ratings out there, they have to do it because that's what we all kind of click on, right? But it doesn't mean that they've seen every single game. Doesn't even mean they've seen the games in person. What really translates is the fact that you get this guy on campus at the camps in front of Dabo Swinney, in front of Garrett Riley, allowing him to get that offer and earn that offer, and then be a guy who's developed that relationship early enough for Clemson, for him to commit to Clemson. By the time he comes to the Tigers, he should be much more developed than he already is. And I look forward to seeing what our incoming freshman review will be of him, because I already love a ton about him. That's for sure. Hey, we're going to finish up the episode talking about the path to Hugley from Cade Klubnik. So Cade Klubnik is obviously the unquestioned starter for 2025. Behind him, you have Christopher Vizzina, who is still waiting for his time. He had a pretty good spring game. I think he was probably the star of the spring game as far as quarterback goes. Had a lot of praise from Dabo Swinney and Garrett Riley. He does seem to be a little bit sharper than he was in the past. And 2025 will continue to be a big year, not just for Cade, to me, for Cade on the field. Cade will depart for the NFL after 2025 and then hopefully hand it off to Christopher Vizzina in 2026. And that's why you want a lot of the development behind the scenes to happen with Vizzina. Because I can see Vizzina being ready for 2026, making that decision early, getting him in place. And to me, he's the guy that you should be able to trust the most. Now, you still have Chris Denson, who also did well in the spring game, brings that kind of, as we're talking about with Hugley, that kind of a little bit more athletic ability, a little bit more dual threat quarterback that I know a lot of fans are excited to see, because it's just a different thing that frustrates quarterback or defenses and, keeps defenses on their heels. But I do feel like if you were to ask me, which you're not asking me, I'm telling you on the podcast, but I think it'll be Christopher Vizzina 2026. I don't know if you're going to get 2 years with Christopher Vizzina, because you're going to have Tait Reynolds in there, and everybody seems to starting to be on the Tait Reynolds train. He had a great showing at the Elite 11 camp or pro day there. He had was very accurate. I think he had a lot of strikes and a lot of good support and praise from that. So I think he could be one of those guys that when he gets on campus, he'll probably need 1 year to kind of sit behind Vizzina. That's why I'm putting Vizzina in there for 2026. And I could see Christopher Vizzina going into 2027 as well. But that's really where I see there will be a big fight between Reynolds and Vizzina for 2027. And then possibly 2028, you could see Tait Reynolds take over. So Klubnik, Vizzina, Reynolds, maybe, or Klubnik, Vizzina, Reynolds. Maybe you see that. So 5, 6, 7. So we're at 2027. And then 2028, I think you'll probably see more of Tait Reynolds as well. It could be Tait's third year, could be his second year, depending on how everything shakes out. Kharim Hughley will likely study underneath him and possibly redshirt to me in 2027, and then in 2028 have a chance to come out as a redshirt freshman and to make some big time steps. That's kind of my high level thought process of where the quarterbacks will be. So let me just spit out the years again for you. So you've got Cade Klubnik, and then Christopher Vizzina, and then Tait Reynolds, maybe 1-2 years. So you're looking at Karem being a redshirt freshman in 2027, or excuse me, a true freshman 2027, redshirt freshman 2028, 2029 redshirt sophomore. So I could see that. You're not going to necessarily see him immediately in 2027. I feel as if it makes a little bit more sense that you'd possibly see him 28 or 29 as a redshirt sophomore, a 3 years into the program, redshirt sophomore that's ready to go. Who knows how everything goes between now and the next 4 years for sure, but he definitely has 2 years to get through high school, 2 years to develop, or at least 1.5 years to develop and be ready for Clemson. So no rush to see Hugley just jump out there and be a superstar for Clemson, because they do have kind of a progression. But that's what you're seeing from Garrett Riley. He wants to go ahead and get that progression on board and on the in sequence. So that's one less thing to guess about and guys to build around. So I really like the way Clemson does things. It's purposeful, it's slow, it's methodical, but when they get guys that definitely want to be there in positions of need, like a quarterback, then they can really build around that. Especially if they get them early, they can build around it. Now, who knows what happens if Christopher Vizzina doesn't do well in 2026. Possibly you throw Tait Reynolds in there earlier than possible. And then that would kind of speed up a bunch of different timelines, in my opinion. But best case scenario, you do finally see what Vizzina can do after Cade Klubnik is gone. I'm looking forward to what Garrett Riley can do to build up, because these are Garrett Riley's guys now at this point. I guess, well, you could probably say Christopher Vizzina is not a Garrett Riley guy, but everybody after that is a Garrett Riley guy. So I'm curious to see how they all shake out, how long Garrett Riley will be around for sure. That is still a big question mark as well, because if he continues to have great success, then other universities are going to come knocking to see if he can become a head coach, because he's young and he's got that offensive mindset that everybody loves. The baton and the progression, though, is kind of in place. And these guys, as we do recruiting with Clemson, we know that they try to get them to lean on guys who want to be with Clemson, not just want to be with Garrett Riley, right? So no matter what happens in the next 4 years, which is a lot to predict, it's really nice to see what Clemson has lined up so far. I think Clemson has done really well with Kharim Hughley, and we'll see how they develop as the season goes on. Again, I'm looking forward to a couple of years down the road, me doing a video here, a podcast here with you, talking about him as an rising freshman coming to Clemson, in the off season. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen, go check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. You should be the most informed fan on the rapid changes of the college football landscape. You need to find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, that's the end of the week. Next week, I'm going to head back to Lawrenceville, but we still have shows for you as we continue to ramp up, and we'll get back to daily shows towards the end of towards the end of next week. So you'll see more and more as we get ready to continue to ramp up towards that first game of the season, the headliner, the showstopper, the LSU Tigers versus the Clemson Tigers in Clemson Memorial Stadium, Death Valley. And as always, Tiger fans, that's the end of the show, but I'll see you at the top of the hill.